Get ready, because in today's video we've got a lot of stuff to cover. We're building a new tank and improving on a few terrariums.
A few weeks ago I constructed two new tanks. We used one of them in last week's video and the other will be used today.
However, I don't intend to go as elaborate as last week. Sure, I want the tank to look good, but its main purpose will be to act as a sort of quarantine or holding tank.
Currently I'm using this 110 liter tank for the same purpose, but we'll be taking it down today. It's way bigger than it needs to be and I want to use this space for something else. And the first thing I'll do is take out all of the leftover Vulcano and add it to the river tank. Surprisingly, the Vulcano in the river tank isn't growing that fast and there's even an empty spot in the back, so all of the valves pretty welcome here. Next I began deconstructing the tank, first removing the floating plants, then the aquatic plants and finally the fish. I won't go over what fish are in here, as you'll see them in future videos. But if you look closely you might see some of the fish that are in there. The only hint I'll give you is that some of them might jump. Because of that I've lowered the waterline considerably to prevent them from jumping out. Anyway, I had to take the old tank down first since I need the foam mat and the other materials for the new tank. The foam mat consisted out of a bunch of scraps, one of which could be cut to fit the size of the smaller tank. The foam was then attached to the tank using double-sided tape and placed in the stand. From here I started setting up the tank. I'll be using the same materials as before, first building up some height with the media bags, and then covering everything in sand.
And on top of using all the same materials from the last setup, I'm also adding a few of these lava rocks to make the tank look more interesting, as well as to add more surface area for the bacteria.
After playing around a little bit, I decided to go for a corner island layout. Next I add the pre-cycled sponge filter to keep this tank clean and healthy. And then began adding the plants. I have a few plants that are still in their pots and those can be used to hide the filter. Next I added some stem plants in the other corner and all of the crypts on top of the island. Finally I added a few red tiger lotus in the front left corner and then added water. Just like the last tank, this one won't be filled up all the way to make sure the fish won't jump out. Talking about fish, let's add them to the tank.
And there you have it, my new quarantine / holding tank. Now I think this tank looks really good and it will probably work really well, but long term I do plan on moving it somewhere else in the animal room. For now it can sit there just fine, but because I want to use this area as a background, I want to have something nice looking over there. So this tank is probably gonna get switched out somewhere in the future. I don't have any particular plans for it right now, but if you have any cool ideas for something cool that could sit over there in the background, definitely let me know down in the comments. Now, moving on to the next portion of this video, we're also gonna need to do some maintenance on a few of my terrariums.
I have one super small terrarium that I just can't get to work in its original container. It kept drying out and about a month ago I found this small jar, so I decided I want to transfer the hardscape to this new container and give it one final shot. Now I'm not gonna do anything groundbreaking here, just add a drainage layer, a substrate barrier and then a substrate consisting purely out of sphagnum moss. This is going to be a moss only scape, so I went into my garden and found a patch of this cool looking moss. A quick spray to give it some moisture and then we're done. Next up is the hot dog jar terrarium. In this one the moss is growing a bit tall and the glass is a bit nasty, but overall this one is doing fine. I'll just open the container, press the moss back down in there, spray the sides with a tiny bit of water and then wipe them clean. It's not a lot of work, but that looks so much better already. The final terrarium update will be this big jar. This one also has pretty nasty glass and some of the plants unfortunately didn't make it. But one quick look reveals that the springtails in here are absolutely thriving. Anyway, the first thing I did was wipe down the glass. Next I trimmed back the Vulcano and redistributed the cuttings. I then added a small piece of rabbit's foot fern that doesn't have any leaves right now, but will hopefully grow some really soon. I also added a small cutting of Ficus pumila corsifolia, and as a final touch, I decided to add some leaf litter.
But before putting this terrarium back on the terrarium shelf, I want to rearrange everything that's up here. So let's do that next. And there we go. The new quarantine tank is done. We did some maintenance on some of the terrariums up here. We moved stuff around. Now I know it looks a bit empty, but I'm planning out a really cool terrarium build that will go up there as well, and it will really fill in that space. Now I just checked and it turns out that the shrimp tank is almost 250 days old. So I'm gonna wait until it's exactly 250 days old, and then we're gonna do an extensive update on how the tank is doing. So that's why you didn't get to see that much of the shrimp tank in this video, but little spoiler, it's doing fine. But that'll have to do it for this week's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I recommend you watch this video next to see me build this tank down here, the Peacock Gudgeon Aquarium. It's a really nice video, I put a lot of effort into it, and I'm really happy with both the video and the tank, so I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it. I'll see you there.